Howdy folks, welcome to the Hillbilly Kitchen. Today we're going to be making the world's best hot dog chili. Now, I make this exact same recipe down at the store once a month for our chili dog special, and we serve it up on a homemade sourdough bun, and it's a premium hot dog and everything. And I can tell you, the better the hot dog and the better the bun, the better your final chili dog is going to be. But pick a hot dog and a bun that you like to go with this recipe. Just what you prefer, and I have also learned that not everybody prefers a big premium hot dog. There are two ways to make this, and I make it two different ways. I'm going to show you both of those ways, and I'm going to do the one that has a couple more steps, I guess. But this recipe originally started out as a camping recipe. I would make it when we would take the kids camping, and we'd take big groups of kids camping, so I'd have to make quite a bit. Now, you have to start out with a pound of ground beef. I really like something at least 80-20 in this because it does affect the flavor. If somebody happens to have a 70-30 ground beef on sale, use it, that's fine. Just make sure you drain it really good. And I just brown that and season it with salt and pepper, and I do have some in the pan behind me here already on the stove. So I'm going to move this stuff out of the way. But you need salt, pepper, oh, and a little onion powder. Put a little onion powder in it, brown it really good, and drain it. And you can multiply this recipe, make as much as you want, but this is for 1 pound. And this will do, 8 to 10 hot dogs, depending on how thick you like the chili on your hot dogs. Now, when I'm camping, I use this stuff right here, just a pack of taco mix. And all this here, well, not that, but this is basically what's in here. Now, when you buy your taco seasoning, you want to shop for it just a little bit. Get the stuff with no MSGs in it. Those things are awful. You don't want to eat them. But for the sake of the video and to show the more complicated way to do it, we're going to use this stuff here. Now, I have about a tablespoon of cornstarch here, maybe a little more. You're going to need that to thicken it with. Those taco seasoning packets, they already have that in it. If you've ever used those, you know that you add about 3/4 of a cup of water. You cook it for a while, it gets thick. That's what the cornstarch is going to do. You also want a little bit of sugar. Those taco seasoning packs already have that in there. I'm using about a tablespoon. Adjust it up or down to your taste. And this is a bulk taco seasoning here. And a lot of people are doing the bulk spices because you can get them a lot cheaper. Like I got this for $4. And you can get them at bulk food stores. They're popping up everywhere. That's what yesteryear is. That's where I said I make the hot dog specials once a month. And this is what I use in them at the store, and I've only got a heaping tablespoon of that in here. That'll make a lot of tacos. And I've got about a teaspoon of chili powder because this doesn't have quite the same flavor as the packets do. So I like to put a little bit of chili powder in here. So this is like 3 to 1, 3 parts the taco seasoning, bulk taco seasoning, and 1 part chili powder. So I'm going to go ahead and dump that together, and I'm going to dump my sugar in here. Like I said, that's basically what's in my taco seasoning packet plus the cornstarch. Now the other thing you're going to need, get this out of the way too, if you watched my regular chili video, I said all chili has to have some tomato. Well, because this started out as a camping recipe, I always use ketchup in it. And I've got about 1/3 of a cup of ketchup here. You can also adjust that up or down to suit your taste or the taste of the people you're cooking for, but about 1/3 of a cup in a pound is plenty. It gives it color and the flavor. And you can use tomato paste or tomato sauce in this, especially if you're making a lot more, but you're going to have to add a little more spices to get that same flavor that the ketchup has. Ketchup is easy. Just about 1/3 of a cup. And I've got a cup of water here. In hot dog chili, you know you have to have that sauce, not just the meat. So that's what the water is for. And you would use that also with the taco seasoning packet. So let's take this stuff over to the stove. Now, when you brown your meat and you drain it, you want to make sure that you chop it up really, really good. Because if you have great big chunks of meat in your chili for your hot dogs, like some of these chunks in here, it's just going to roll off your hot dog and make a big mess. You're not going to be able to keep it on there at all. Now, you want to add your cornstarch directly to your water. You don't want to put that in your pan, and you don't want to put it in after you put your water in, because you have to add the cornstarch to cold water or it will clump up. And I've made this before and not gotten enough cornstarch. Now, if you do that, you cannot add more cornstarch to it once your water gets hot. Once you've added it to the pan and it starts to get hot, don't dump cornstarch in it. You'll have lumps and it will not be good. Well, I'm not going to say what those lumps are the consistency of, because we're making something that tastes good. But they're very slimy lumps. Don't put your cornstarch in a hot pan. Just kind of keep busting this up until you get it all busted up really fine, because like I said, you don't want big chunks. It'll just roll off of your chili dogs. You also want to make sure you drain it really good too, because nobody wants a greasy chili dog. If you can get leaner meat on sale, use the leaner meat in this. It's fine. I mean, like, I would never use the super lean stuff for a hamburger, because I don't think it has enough fat to have good flavor. But in this, it's okay. And a lot of times our local grocery store will have the stuff that's like 97% lean, cheaper than they have regular ground beef. I don't know why. They just run specials on it, and when they do that, I get it for stuff like this. You do want to give this cornstarch a little stir after you dump it in the water, because it all goes right to the bottom. And like I said, if you don't get enough, it's not a big deal. You're just going to cook it a little bit longer. And if it happens that you put too much cornstarch in your water, then you just add a little more water to your chili. It's not a big deal. A little more water will thin it right on down if it comes out too thick. Okay, and then I'm going to add my spices here. And you want to mix that up. And if you've ever used those taco seasoning packets, you can see that pretty much looks like it looks when you add a taco seasoning packet to your ground beef. And I'm going to go ahead and add my ketchup. And you do have to let this simmer until it gets thick. And it won't take long. Once it comes to a boil, you'll cook it just a few minutes, 3 or 4 minutes maybe, unless it's thinner than you want. And if it's thinner than you want, just cook it a little bit longer and keep an eye on it, and it will get thicker. And if you're doing it for like a Super Bowl party or tailgating or something where you're going to have to keep it warm for a long time, for several hours, you want to make it a little thinner, because the longer it cooks, the thicker it will get. And if you have it simmering for a long time, keeping it warm for a long time, you might have to add a little more water to it after a few hours. But you can literally keep it warm all day long, and it's like regular chili. The longer it cooks, the better it tastes. So if you're doing something, even a big cookout or bonfire where people are going to be eating over the course of several hours, coming and getting them a chili dog, or showing up one at a time and eating chili dogs. Or this is a great recipe for fundraisers too. If your kids are on a ball team or something and you want to do a fundraiser and do chili dogs, because you can keep this warm, like I said, all day long. Just keep an eye on how thick it's getting. If it gets too thick or too dry, you add a little water. And it's not a big deal. It doesn't hurt it at all. Okay, keep an eye on this. You don't have to stir it constantly or anything, but keep an eye on it while it's coming to a boil and while it simmers for just a minute. While we're waiting on this to cook, there's something that I want to share with y'all. And I know Brett always puts a skip ahead on these. But even if you don't want to hear this because you don't believe in God or you don't believe in Jesus, I really wish you would stick around and hear this, because I want to talk to y'all about forgiveness for just a minute. And that's a concept, I think, that we all struggle with on a daily basis. And there is medical evidence and scientific proof that having unforgiveness in your life, holding grudges, holding on to hurt when somebody has done something to you, causes both emotional and physical health problems. If you don't believe me, you can look up the studies yourself, or you can sit and watch Dr. Phil or any other talk show, and there will be somebody on there who has destroyed their life because they just can't let go of something that somebody did to them. And I want to tell you what God says about it, or what Jesus said about it in Jesus' words in all three Gospels. And in the first place it appears is in Matthew chapter 6. You can read Matthew chapter 6 for yourself, but that's where the Lord's Prayer is. And they asked Jesus, how do we pray? And he told them that. And everybody has heard the Lord's Prayer. Forgive us our debts, forgive us our transgressions, forgive us our sins, forgive us our trespasses, however it's worded in your translation or in the gospel that you're reading. It all means the same thing. Forgive us for what we have done as we forgive others for what they have done. That's in the Lord's Prayer. And I've heard that in churches, I couldn't even tell you how many times. But I honestly don't believe I have ever heard any pastor or television preacher or internet preacher talk about the two verses that come after the Lord's Prayer. And I don't know why that is, but they don't. What Jesus said is, "For if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses." Well, that's fairly clear. God expects us to forgive people if we expect Him to forgive us. And I can tell you that forgiveness is something you are going to have to seek on a daily basis, and you are going to have to give on a daily basis. And there are people out there who will say, "You have no idea how bad I've been hurt, and I can't possibly forgive that." Well, you can, and you will feel a whole lot better if you do. And I know that you will, because I've had to forgive a lot of stuff too, and I'm not going to get into what I've had to forgive. But I will tell you this, that there was one thing in particular that I literally prayed for 3 years for God to help me forgive it. Now, I've had to pray for God to help me forgive a lot of things, and God will help us forgive. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you forget what happened, but it certainly fades the memory. And once you forgive somebody for what they have done to you, no matter how bad it is, that pain will go away. The depression will go away. The hurt will go away. And your outlook on life and your life in general will be a whole lot better. You will feel better. You will think clearer. And the world will just be a better place. And I promise you, I do know what you're talking about when you say, I don't, and I couldn't possibly understand. And even if you haven't had anything totally horrible happen to you that seems unforgivable, if you live in this world, you're going to have people step on your toes, stab you in the back, and rip your heart out. And you're going to have to forgive them. And I promise you, there are people that you will hurt. And even if you think you have never hurt anybody, you're probably wrong, but you have transgressed against God's law. You have broken His law. And when we break His law as His creation, it hurts Him. So there are things that you need to be forgiven for, and I know there are things that you need to forgive other people for. And like I said, it's one of those daily things, but once you forgive, it takes away the pain. And it doesn't do you any good to be mad at somebody else, because when you're mad at somebody else and when you hold a grudge against them, it doesn't affect them in the least. Most of the time, they don't even know you're holding the grudge. It only hurts you. It makes you depressed. It makes you physically sick. So forgive them so that God will forgive you. And when you learn to forgive other people, and when God forgives you, you'll also find you can forgive yourself for a lot of things. And I know that most women tend to blame themselves for a lot. Probably a lot of things that we shouldn't. But that's something that I wanted to share with you. And it's something that I try to live by daily. And sometimes I get mad more than I should before I hear those words. But, you know, I said it's a struggle. And sometimes you have to pray for God to help you forgive, because it's more than you can let go of. But He'll help. Okay, so we're getting pretty close here to boiling. This pan's been on medium all that time. I don't know why we don't have bubbles. Maybe because I hadn't finished. But you can see that it's starting to get thick. And it looks like hot dog chili. All of the meat's busted up really fine, and that's what you want, so that it will stay on the hot dog. Looks like that tablespoon of cornstarch was just about the perfect amount this time. But like I said, if it's a little too runny for you, if you want it thicker, you just cook it a little bit longer. Or if for some reason you got a little too much in there, you can add a little bit of water and thin it on out. And I know when we were kids, hot dog chili really got stretched. So this chili here probably would have had at least another cup of water in it. And if you want to stretch it, you can do that too. But add a little more seasoning if you're going to add that much more water, because you can stretch it. I mean, you know, if you got to feed a whole lot of people, stretch it a little. This is a super meaty batch of chili here for hot dogs. Okay. There we go. It's bubbling now. And I'm going to call that good enough. If you wanted to keep this warm, you can keep it in a crock pot. If you're going to take it tailgating or to a cookout or something like that, you can put it in one of those little aluminum pans and sit it right on the grill and keep it warm that way. If you want to keep it warm on your stove, if you're having a party in your house and you're using your stove to keep stuff warm, just turn it down to simmer and let it sit there. And just keep an eye on it so, you know, it don't dry out. And it'll be fine for endless hours. Alright, you want to make sure at the very least you've got some chopped onion and some shredded cheddar cheese and some ketchup and mustard to serve with these. And you can have other fixings with it too. The best way to cook your hot dogs, of course, is on a stick over a fire when you're camping. But we don't get to camp every day, and we certainly don't get to camp every time we want to have a chili dog, especially if we're going to be having it for a party or something. You can make a whole lot of hot dogs in your oven. Just turn it on about 350 or so, pop them in there on a baking sheet. If you cover it with aluminum foil, you don't even have to clean it up afterwards. And cook them for 25-30 minutes or so. They'll swell all up real big at 350 and they'll brown nice. Okay, these were in the oven a little bit longer than 30 minutes, so they're really swelled up. But I did want to dress a couple hot dogs before we ended the video, so you could kind of see what it looked like. But whether you're doing a Sunday football party or you're doing a big cookout or bonfire, going camping, whatever you're doing, this is a really good chili dog recipe and it's really easy. Give it a try. Let me know what you think of it. Don't forget to click like and subscribe before you leave. Please share our videos. And until next time, remember to put God first. Thanks for joining us.